6 ways to let go of an unhealthy relationship before bed, calm and Zen deep sleep. It's almost midnight. The world outside has gone quiet. But inside, something still stirs. Maybe it's a memory, a conversation that keeps replaying, or the weight of a relationship that ended, but never really left. Tonight, you don't need to fix anything. Just breathe. Let these 6 gentle Zen reflections guide you. Not to forget, but to finally let go. In tonight's journey, there will be a few quiet moments. Gentle spaces without words, just soft music and stillness. These pauses are not empty. They are an invitation to breathe, to return to yourself, to feel, without needing to explain anything. Let these moments hold you. Allow them to balance your emotions, soften your edges, and prepare you to receive what comes next, with an open, quiet heart. 1. Recognize the weight you're still carrying. There's a quiet moment in the night, just after the noise has faded, but before the body fully surrenders to sleep, where truth begins to whisper. Not the loud, dramatic kind, not the type that demands answers, but the kind that lives in the space between heartbeats. Soft, steady, and honest. Imagine walking through a forest at dusk. The path is long, and you carry a bag slung over your shoulder. You don't remember packing it. You've grown used to its weight. But with each step, your breath shortens, your shoulders ache, and only when you stop to rest, only when the wind stills and the sky begins to darken, do you realize you've been carrying something far too heavy for far too long. This is what emotional residue feels like. This is what we carry after an unhealthy relationship ends. Even after the person is gone, even after the doors have closed, the energy remains in the nervous system, in the way your jaw tenses when a name is mentioned, in the way your stomach knots at familiar phrases, in the quiet dread that lingers before bed. In Buddhist psychology, there is a term, vasana, mental imprints or residual patterns left behind by past experiences. They are not memories in the conventional sense. They are deeper, subtle grooves etched into the mind stream, invisible to the eye, but felt in the body. And the first step to healing is to notice, not to fix, not to judge, but to see, to pause, and ask gently, what am I still holding onto that no longer belongs to me? What voices still echo in my mind that are not mine? What weight have I mistaken for my own spine? Zen teaches us that awareness is enough to begin. The moment you notice the burden, you are no longer entirely bound by it. You have stepped into the position of the observer, the silent witness who watches, but does not identify. Neuroscience echoes this. Studies in trauma recovery show that interoceptive awareness, the capacity to sense what's happening inside the body, can calm the amygdala, reduce hypervigilance, and restore emotional regulation. In other words, the more clearly we notice the tension, the more permission the nervous system has to release it. But this isn't about racing toward healing. This is about sitting down beside your pain, as you would sit beside an old friend who has been through too much. Without rushing them to speak, without needing them to disappear, just being there. There's a Zen story of a monk who asked his teacher, "What should I do with my suffering?" The teacher replied, "Give it tea." This isn't a metaphor about rituals. It's a reminder to treat our internal wounds with hospitality, to create a space where pain can be acknowledged without being amplified. So tonight, as you lie down, you don't need to go digging for every scar. You don't need to name every betrayal or decode every message. But perhaps you can feel where the weight lives in your body. In the chest, the throat, the back of the eyes. And in that feeling, there is already a soft release. Because presence is the antidote to repression. Silence is the beginning of clarity. And breath, slow, intentional breath, is the oldest medicine of all. No need to rush the process. No need to analyze. Just notice. Notice the echoes that rise at night. The patterns that replay. The way you might still be bracing for someone who's no longer in the room. And when you do, offer a gentle bow to the weight you've carried. It served a purpose once. It kept you alert. It gave you shape. But now, you can begin to put it down. Not all at once, not in a grand goodbye, but like a traveler removing one stone from their pack, feeling the difference in their step, and deciding, softly, quietly, that they no longer have to carry what never belonged to them in the first place. In this space, you are not broken, you are becoming lighter. And that is enough. As we continue this quiet journey together, we'll explore what it means to sit with the pain, without letting it define you. For now, just rest in the knowing that healing begins the moment you begin to notice. 2. Sit with the pain without letting it define you. Quote, "Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. The Buddha." There's a moment, often just before sleep, when the ache starts to surface, not always sharp, not always loud, but familiar. It might appear as a tightness in the chest, a sudden wave of loneliness, or a memory that creeps in without warning. This pain doesn't demand to be solved. It asks only to be seen. Zen doesn't ask us to transcend pain or pretend it's not there. Instead, it invites us to sit with it, gently, without judgment, like sitting beside a fire on a cold night. You don't rush it, you don't touch the flame. You just stay. The warmth doesn't come from forcing it, but from presence. After an unhealthy relationship, emotional pain often lingers like smoke long after the fire is out. It clings to old conversations, to the places you once visited, to the version of yourself that you had to become in order to survive. And that pain, if left unacknowledged, can quietly begin to define you, not just how you feel, but who you believe you are. But here's the truth. You are not your pain. You are the one witnessing it. There is a term in Buddhist psychology, clinging aggregates, mental formations we attach to so deeply. They shape our identity, the stories we repeat, the emotional wounds we replay, the shame we carry like a name tag. These things may feel true, but they are not the totality of who you are. They are clouds, not the sky. Modern psychology offers a parallel insight. In trauma recovery, there's a concept called self-distancing, the ability to reflect on painful experiences from a place of calm awareness rather than emotional immersion. Research shows that when we speak about our pain in the third person, or observe it with gentle distance, our brain reduces its reactive patterns. We begin to rewire our emotional response, slowly, but powerfully. So tonight, if your pain visits you, don't resist it, but don't become it either. Let it sit across from you like an old friend you're no longer trying to fix or impress. You can feel its presence without letting it take over the room. You can breathe, even if it lingers. Zen teaches that pain is like a guest. You open the door, you offer it tea, and you listen, but you don't give it your bed. You don't hand it the keys. It can stay a while, but it doesn't get to move in. And sometimes, simply acknowledging the pain is what softens it. You might place your hand over your heart and whisper inwardly, "I see you. You're allowed to be here." Not as permission to suffer, but as an act of kindness toward yourself. As a reminder that pain is part of the human experience, not a personal failure. In truth, many of the wounds we carry from toxic relationships were never ours to begin with. They were projections, patterns, echoes from someone else's unhealed story. And yet, we often mistake them for our own reflection. Sitting with the pain helps us distinguish between what belongs and what can be released. It's not easy, it's not quick, but it's sacred. This isn't about solving anything before bed. It's about no longer running. About choosing, for once, to simply stay with what is, without needing it to be different. So if there is pain tonight, offer it stillness. Let the quiet of the room cradle it. Let the breath keep you grounded. And remember, you are not the storm. You are the ground it passes over. As we move into the next reflection, we'll begin to explore how releasing the illusion of control can create space for peace. But for now, rest in this truth. Your pain is real, but it is not who you are. You are something far wider, far deeper, far more whole. Three, break the illusion of control. There's a part of the human mind that clings to control the way fingers clutch a cliff edge, not because it's safe, but because letting go feels like falling. Especially after an unhealthy relationship, we often replay scenes in our minds, words we should have said, red flags we ignored, things we might still do to fix what was broken. It's a quiet desperation, dressed up as reflection, but underneath it is something much older, tanha, the Buddhist word for craving. Not always for pleasure, but for control. Control feels logical. It promises safety. It gives us the illusion that if we just try hard enough, understand enough, explain ourselves better, forgive more gracefully, prove our worth more convincingly, then maybe the ending would change. Maybe the other person would see our pain and soften. Maybe we'd finally be enough. But Zen invites us to see through that illusion. You cannot make a tree grow straight by pulling on its branches. You cannot make someone love you in the way you need just by giving more. You cannot rewrite a story that was never yours to author. The mind often resists this. It tells us, you must not have tried hard enough. Or, maybe if you wait a little longer, they'll come around. But the more we try to control what is outside of us, especially another human heart, the more we exhaust our inner world. There's a Zen image of a hand scooping water. If you close your palm and try to hold it tightly, the water slips through your fingers. But if you open your hand and allow the water to rest there, it stays, at least for a while. The same is true with people, with peace, with love. Control is not the path to security, presence is. Psychologically, this need for control often stems from emotional trauma, moments when we felt powerless, unseen, or abandoned. In response, our minds develop strategies to avoid ever feeling that way again. We overthink, overgive, overanalyze. We try to manage not only our own feelings, but the feelings of others. But true healing begins when we admit it's not working, not because we're weak, but because it was never ours to hold. Tonight, before you sleep, ask yourself, what am I still trying to manage that isn't mine? What version of the past am I trying to edit? What future am I trying to script? Who am I still trying to save? And then, breathe. Imagine setting it down, not with anger, not with defeat, but like placing a heavy book on a quiet shelf. Saying to yourself, this chapter taught me something. I no longer need to rewrite it. Zen doesn't ask you to stop caring. It asks you to care without attachment, to act from love, but let go of outcome, to walk with sincerity, but without demand. There is freedom in surrender, not passive resignation, but wise release. And if that feels too hard tonight, start small. Release one thought, one memory, one what if. Whisper to it, you've done enough. I release you now. Control is rooted in fear, but letting go is rooted in trust. Trust that what is yours will come gently. Trust that what is no longer aligned will drift away. Trust that you don't have to chase, prove, or hold everything in place to be okay. As you soften into this knowing, your body begins to relax. The nervous system loosens its grip. Your breath becomes slower, your chest less guarded, and within that softness, there is space for peace to enter. Not because you forced it, but because you made room. In the next reflection, we'll explore how to come back to the present moment, because when the mind stops reaching backward and forward, it finally begins to rest. For now, just know this: control was never your refuge. Surrender is. 4. Reclaim the present moment from the past. There is a quiet truth most of us resist, that the past is not happening anymore, yet it continues to shape our breath, our posture, our nights. Toxic relationships have a way of stretching themselves beyond their end. Even when the phone stops ringing, even when the last message has been sent, the mind continues the conversation. We replay arguments. We imagine different outcomes. We re-enter scenes that hurt us, again and again, as if repetition might offer resolution. But the truth is, healing can't happen in the past, nor does it live in the imaginary future where we finally get the apology. the closure, the justice. Healing begins here, in the now, in the body that is breathing, in the silence that surrounds you, in the single moment you are actually living. Zen calls this returning to the present moment, not as a trick to forget, but as a path to freedom. There is a well-known teaching by Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh. The present moment is the only moment available to us, and it is the door to all moments. It sounds simple, because it is. And yet, this is one of the hardest doors to walk through. The past holds strong emotional gravity. Our thoughts orbit around it like satellites, convinced that something essential is still hidden there. And yet, the more we revisit what cannot be changed, the more we miss the beauty of what is. Zen offers a different way, not to erase the past, but to gently unhook from it, to return to the breath, the inhale that's happening now, the exhale that follows. No judgment, no rush. There's a story told in many Zen circles of a student who kept asking his teacher, "What can I do to find peace?" The teacher answered, "Drink your tea." The student was confused. He asked again and again, and the answer never changed. Finally, in frustration, the student exclaimed, "What does tea have to do with peace?" And the teacher replied, "You're always somewhere else, even when the tea is in your hand." This is the nature of the untrained mind. We sit in a quiet room, yet our minds are still entangled with scenes from weeks ago, or years ago, or the echo of someone who's no longer here. We carry them into bed, into our dreams, into the stillness that was meant to be our sanctuary. Tonight, you are invited to reclaim your space, not by force, but by attention. Feel the weight of your body against the mattress. Notice the softness of the blanket. Hear the hush between sounds. Feel your breath rise, then fall, again and again. This is presence, and presence is medicine. Neuroscientists have found that focusing awareness on physical sensations, like the rhythm of breath or the feeling of fabric on skin, activates areas of the brain associated with safety and emotional regulation. It brings the nervous system out of survival mode and into a state of grounded calm. In other words, the more we are here, the less power the past holds over us. So if your thoughts try to pull you back into what was said, into what could have been, into the grief that still lingers, acknowledge them with kindness. Then gently guide your attention home, to now, to the sacred ordinariness of being alive in this moment, with nothing to fix and no one to please. You don't need to solve the entire story tonight. You don't need to rehearse your worthiness to anyone. You only need to return, again and again, to what's real. This breath, this body, this quiet room, this safe now. Each time you do, you reclaim a piece of yourself that was left behind in someone else's story. And over time, that act of returning becomes a kind of homecoming, a reunion with the version of you that no longer needs to beg for peace, because peace is what you've chosen to become. In the next reflection, we'll explore how releasing someone with compassion, not bitterness, can complete what control and closure never could. But for now, rest in the knowing that your presence is enough. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are here, and that is where your healing begins. 5. Release with compassion, not bitterness. Letting go doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it arrives quietly, like a breath you didn't realize you were holding. And when it finally leaves, what's most surprising is not the absence of the other person, but the absence of the tension you've grown so used to carrying. After an unhealthy relationship, it's natural to feel bitterness, anger, even rage. They flare up in the night like flash fires, brief, intense, consuming. You remember what they said, what they did, how much you gave, how little they saw, and you want, more than anything, for that pain to mean something, to be acknowledged, to be repaid, to be heard. But in Zen, we learn that clinging to bitterness is like gripping a burning coal, hoping it will hurt the other. While it scorches your own hand, anger is not the enemy. It's a messenger. It tells you where your boundaries were crossed, where your trust was betrayed. But once the message is heard, you don't need to keep holding the flame. There is a Zen proverb: you will not be punished for your anger. You will be punished by your anger. Not by karma, not by some external force, but by the way it tightens your body, disturbs your sleep, keeps your heart clenched long after the story has ended. To release with compassion doesn't mean you approve of what happened. It means you are ready to stop reliving it. It means you no longer want to be tethered to someone else's shadow. It means you understand their actions were a reflection of their suffering, not your worth. And that distinction is freedom. Psychologically, compassion-based practices, like loving-kindness meditation, have been shown to reduce cortisol, soothe the amygdala, and increase positive affect even after interpersonal trauma. In other words, when we wish peace for others, not out of obligation, but as an offering of release, we unhook ourselves from their story. Tonight, you are invited to do just that, not because they deserve it, but because you do, because you deserve to sleep without that knot in your chest. You deserve to wake up with space in your heart. You deserve to move through the world untethered, light, clear, whole. So, take a quiet moment now. Close your eyes, place one hand over your heart, and breathe. If it feels safe, you might whisper inwardly, "I release you from my anger. I release myself from this story. May we both be free." Or even simply, "I wish you peace, so I may have mine." You may not feel it fully. That's okay. Forgiveness is not a feeling, it's a direction. A choice to turn your heart toward clarity, not resentment. Release does not mean forgetting. It means you've decided not to carry what no longer fits the shape of who you're becoming. Like letting go of a boat once it has crossed the river. The boat was necessary, but now, you are on new land, and it is time to walk forward. In the next and final reflection, we'll explore how sleep itself can become the deepest expression of trust and healing. But for now, rest in this truth: compassion isn't about who they are. It's about who you're choosing to be. And you, gentle, brave soul, are becoming free. 6. Sleep as an act of trust and liberation. There is a moment, just before sleep arrives, when everything softens, the noise fades, the edges blur, the boundaries between body and breath, between thought and silence, begin to dissolve. In that moment, Something sacred is happening, not because you're doing anything, but because you've finally stopped doing. Sleep is often described as a biological necessity, but in Zen, it is something more, a spiritual gesture, a surrender, a letting go that requires no proof, no justification, only trust. To sleep is to allow life to unfold without your supervision. It is to give the mind permission to rest, the heart permission to mend, the body permission to simply be. It is the ultimate ungripping. And after an unhealthy relationship, after all the control, the emotional labor, the hypervigilance, this kind of rest is not just healing. It is revolutionary. You've spent enough nights bracing for impact, enough nights rehearsing what you should have said, enough nights scanning the silence for signs of danger. But tonight is different. Because tonight, you are not abandoning yourself. You are choosing to be here, fully present with the version of you that made it through. And that version is worthy of rest. There's a Zen story of a student who asked his master, "How do I find peace?" The master replied, "Lie down, close your eyes, let the earth hold you." That's it, no mantra, no technique, just trust. In trauma recovery, this is known as neuroceptive safety, the deep, embodied sense that you no longer need to be on guard. When your nervous system receives that message, it slows the heart, relaxes the muscles, quiets the mind. True sleep begins, not from exhaustion, but from permission. And so tonight, grant yourself that permission. No need to revisit the past. No need to resolve anything more. No need to be anyone else. You are allowed to rest, softly, fully, freely. Let your body sink into the bed. Let your breath settle like dust in sunlight. Let your thoughts drift without needing to be chased. Let the silence wrap around you like a warm blanket. And if you wake in the night, that's okay. Come back to this breath, this stillness, this trust. Peace is not something you find. It's something you stop resisting. Sleep, then, becomes not just a physical act, but an act of liberation, a quiet vow to begin again, to no longer carry what was never yours, to trust that healing is not a destination, but a soft unfolding in the dark. And if this voice, this space, this reflection has helped you feel just a little less alone, a little more at ease, then maybe, when you're ready, you'll return here again, somewhere in the quiet. We'll be waiting, not to teach, not to preach, just to remind you that you were never broken, only tired. Sleep well, gentle soul. This is Buddhism in you. Come back anytime, if you are still here. At the end of this video, here is your reward. Regular practice will help you transform your own life for the better. 3 simple steps, total. Approximately 5 minutes. Acknowledge what you're still holding. Sit quietly. Place a hand over your heart. Ask yourself, what am I still carrying tonight? No judgment, just notice. Release with compassion. Close your eyes. Inhale slowly. Exhale gently while whispering, I can't control everything. I choose to let this go, with kindness toward myself. Rest as a sacred surrender. Lie down. Place a hand on your belly. With each breath, repeat silently, I am safe to rest. I no longer need to hold on. Practice nightly to clear emotional clutter. Invite deep sleep. Build the inner habit of letting go with ease and self-respect. See you tomorrow night, here,